Hello, everybody. The draft is over. It took 3 long days. It took over 250 selections, and it took longer than the full allotment of the time it took for me to beat the Resident Evil remake. But the draft is over. The 2020 NFL draft is in the books as of about maybe 20 minutes ago. And the Seahawks have made their selections, and now we as fans just have to try and figure out what we think of them. And over the next 3 to 4 years, we'll figure out what we have. So, I've already made my thoughts on the first 2 days of our draft. You guys know what I think about our first three selections, so let's go right into it. Did I like what we did today? I think the answer to that question is yes. Now, when you get down into these rounds, fourth through seventh, it's a little harder to go wrong because risks are more acceptable. Nonsensical picks are a little more reasonable. The nonsensical becomes sensical because you're taking chances. You're not spending the same kind of resources. I think we all understand that taking a questionable pick in the fifth round is much different than doing so in the first. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and look at these picks in order from earliest to the latest. We picked at 133, so it was a little bit of a wait after the draft got going this morning. Had to wait. It must have been at least an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. But we ended up with a tight end, Colby Parkinson out of Stanford. Now, if you guys have been following my draft coverage and my streams so far, then you guys know that I was on the fence on whether or not I wanted a tight end. And one of the tight ends that I really coveted was local boy Hunter Bryant from Washington. So when the pick came up, I was thinking this might be a decent spot to take Hunter, but we'll get to Hunter later. So the guy we took, Colby Parkinson, you look at him, and what I see when I look at Colby Parkinson is a very big target. He's 6'7", 250. He's got all the height and size and ability to go up and get jump balls that you could ever want. He's definitely going to be able to be a big red zone target. He's definitely going to be able to catch jump balls. He's definitely immediately going to be able to do all that stuff. You can split him out wide. He can play receiver. He's a move tight end. You can put him in the slot. You can move him around pretty much anywhere. Not much of a blocker. Not much of a guy you want to line up on the interior. Not the guy you want to be running behind. Not the guy you want to depend to chip block necessarily. So Colby Parkinson compares somewhat in that sense to a guy like Jimmy Graham, who was also a guy who was a tremendous weapon in the passing game and was very hard to defend, but at the end of the day he couldn't block. That was a big part of the reason why he occasionally was frustrating here in Seattle. And to me, this pick is solid. I don't have a ton overwhelmingly positive to say about it, but I think the player is solid. I think he makes sense for what we need. And it's easy to see how he could be an important player this year and in years going forward because, we have an abundance of tight ends on this team right now, but we all know that Greg Olsen is old, probably only has 1 year left, and is very likely to get hurt. We know that Will Dissly is very likely to get hurt. We know that Jacob Hollister is a very limited player, especially now that teams seem to have some kind of, tape on him. They seem to have some sort of understanding of the way he plays, and his effectiveness has gone down significantly ever since that happened. And you have Luke Wilson, who, I like Luke Wilson, but he just doesn't have very much left in the tank. So, Colby Parkinson, I can see him being a big rookie if a few guys go down in front of him. And there's a very good chance the deck could get cleared at the tight end position in 2021. So I like it. Even if he redshirts as a rookie, I like this pick. This is the fourth round, guys. You can take redshirts in the fourth round, and it's not so bad. Totally fine here. All right, next pick. 144. This was a compensation pick. Again, fourth round. We picked up DeeJay Dallas from the Miami Hurricanes, a running back. And This is, of course, the second year in a row we've taken a running back from Miami with a later round pick. Last year was Travis Homer, and we got DeeJay Dallas. And my initial impressions of this guy, again, not a guy I knew very much about going into the draft. In fact, I don't know if I'd heard his name before the pick came up, but he seems to be pretty good. And I have been skeptical of the notion that the Seahawks have needed to add a running back this offseason because, by all measures, Carson is going to be ready to go for the season. Penny's going to be ready to go for the season. Still have Homer. I didn't necessarily see running back to be a significant need, but I knew the possibility of us taking a running back was there. I'm glad we did not spend a high pick on one, and I'm glad we got a guy who actually seems to be pretty good. He's very strong, very stout. He breaks a lot of tackles, very tough to bring down. If injuries hit again, I could see DeeJay getting on the field for the offense. He's a great pass blocker as well, which is very nice, especially for the offense that I hope to build. And even if Carson and Penny and those guys stay healthy, then DeeJay Dallas might project as a bit of a tweener between a running back and a receiver. Could replace CJ Procise. Could become a receiver out of the backfield. Could move to receiver completely. When DeeJay went to Miami, he apparently was initially a wide receiver and then moved to running back. So that tells me he has some talents outside of what you would usually expect from a running back. And finally, he also seems to be a capable punt returner, maybe even a kick returner. So maybe we have something there as well. You guys all know I want to take Lockett out of that kickoff punt return role because it doesn't suit him anymore and it's not worth the risk anymore. So if DeeJay Dallas could fill those roles, then I think he could play a significant role in year one, even if it's just as a return man. Fifth round now. We're moving to the fifth round. This was acquired via trade with the Panthers yesterday. We picked up defensive end Alton Robinson, Syracuse, 19.5 sacks in his career. Seems to be pretty much what you would expect from a defensive end you get in the fifth round. It seems like it's a pretty good round to pick up defensive ends. I think he tested somewhat poorly in the agility portion of his testing, but the agility testing is always a little awkward, or usually is a little awkward, so I'm not super concerned about that. It seems like he has a handful of moves that he can use to get to the quarterback. It seems like he's a guy who could contribute as a rookie, even if he only plays 10 snaps a game. I think this gives us an opportunity to move on from Brandon Jackson, who is really underwhelming to me after a couple years here. And I like this pick. I think it's solid. I can't say I love the guy, but as far as a fifth round pick goes, this is probably the best you can hope for. So DE Alton Robinson out of Syracuse seems good to me. Sixth round. This was supposed to be our last pick, but Freddie Swain, wide receiver from Florida. Very raw, young, good yards after the catch. Kind of makes me think of the way people were talking about Golden Tate when we drafted him. When we drafted Golden Tate, I remember a lot of people said, oh, he's really talented, but he needs to get to be a good receiver first. Right now, he's not a good receiver, but he's a good athlete. And Golden Tate took a little while to get going, but once he got going, we really had something. So that comparison kind of sprung to mind for me when it came to Freddie Swain. I'm not going to pretend that it's likely he's going to have a big contribution as a rookie. Maybe he can become a kick returner and DeeJay becomes the punt returner, maybe something like that. However, the wide receiver depth chart, while I think it's in a pretty good spot, it's pretty top heavy. And Freddie Swain has an opportunity to compete with John Ursua for a bottom tier roster spot if we keep 6 receivers, I think. So, solid pick. Can't complain. Again, when you get down to this part of the draft, there's really not much to get mad about. He was not somebody I was really looking at with this pick, of course. I'm not going to pretend I knew who Freddie Swain was before we got into actually picking him, but seems fine. I can see him making the 53-man roster this year for sure, and from there, we'll just have to see. And finally, we moved to the 7th round, where we made a final selection after trading back in, as I said, using a 6th-round pick next year to take Stephen Sullivan, tight end from LSU. Interestingly enough, we are marking him down as a wide receiver. So that's 2 wide receivers taken near the bottom of the draft. And it feels like there's a little bit of irony there because I spent a lot of time talking about how great this receiver class was, and it is a great receiver class. So of course we wait to the last 2 rounds to actually pick a receiver, and we get 2 guys I had never even thought of before the draft. But that doesn't mean they're bad players. That doesn't mean they're not going to be one of the best players taken in this draft for all we know. So I like this a lot. I like that we traded back into the 7th round to make sure we got a guy. That tells me we like him a lot. I like that we're thinking about having him play receiver for us, it seems like I said, the bottom of our receiver depth chart, especially if Josh Gordon doesn't come back, is open for business. You've got Lockett, you've got Metcalf, you've got David Moore, you've got Philip Dorsett, and past that, I'm open to just about anything. So Sullivan, Swain, and Ursua can compete for those last 2 spots in my mind, and then we go into the season with 6 receivers. That's kind of what I'm thinking right now. Sullivan, obviously, all I know about him now is he's a pretty strong athlete. He's got some real speed and size and strength to him. And the fact that he played tight end in college and that we like him as a receiver tells me that we probably view him as another pretty, a bigger guy. So there seems to have been a priority this offseason to get some big targets for Wilson with Colby, with Sullivan, and even to a certain extent with Swain. I don't know if Swain is the biggest guy maybe, but one thing that stuck out to me when I was trying to look at him was yards after the catch and athleticism. So I like it. I think today's draft went pretty well. I think the latter 2 days of the draft as a whole went quite well. I'm still down about our 1st round pick, and that hurts. So on the whole, I have to give this draft like a C minus, maybe a C. Steven Sullivan move maybe makes me think it's more of a C because I like that, but I cannot help but be underwhelmed with the product overall. Now we enter undrafted rookie free agency, and there's a lot we can do. There's a lot of players out there who I'm interested in who did not make the top 255. Hunter Bryant is probably out of the picture now because we already picked 2 big receivers and a tight end. So apparently, I don't know what's going on with Hunter Bryant, guys, but nobody touched him. I swear to God, I saw 20 tight ends go today. Not one of them was Hunter Bryant. No Trey Adams. Trey Adams is still out there. I would love to bring either of those guys in as undrafted rookie free agents. I think Hunter Bryant's probably a pipe dream now because we've got so many guys like that, but give me Trey Adams. Let's take a look at him, kick the tires, see if he can go physically. That could be tremendous value. I would love to bring in a couple of defensive tackle UDFAs to see what we got there. I don't have any names off the top of my head. Maybe I think it's Raekwon Sullivan might still be there. I think that's his name. And that's probably going to sum it up for me. I'm not going to dive too deeply into undrafted rookie free agency. I have a couple guys in mind. And look, a guy like Trey Adams, he played college football right down the road from the Seahawks. So if he had to choose where he would go in the NFL, it would probably be Seattle. It's got to be the easiest transition for him. So if we have any interest in Trey Adams at all, we have the opportunity to go get him. Hopefully that's what happens. So that's our draft. I give it a C. I like most of what we did in rounds 2 through 7. The stench of that 1st round pick has not been washed off, but we've moved in the right direction. Today, I would give today's draft probably about a B, maybe a B plus. Pretty happy. And that's going to do it for me, guys. So I will stream later tonight. I don't know exactly when, and we can talk about this. We can talk about it. But to me, we did a decent job of making our team better today, which is something That's not always easy to do on day 3. So kudos for that. All right. Peace out, Go Hawks. Catch you later. Gonna be off-season rolls